Okay, I'm going to go over quickly my slides from my presentation today at the ACSA North State Spring Conference at the Peppermill in Reno. It was really fun to get to talk to people about math. So included is the tiny URL, so you can access the slides to look at them. So this is my title. I talked about how the title came from my qualifying exam at San Francisco State, and that's kind of what my work is grounded in right now, and that's what I'm focused on. And so I talked about SF State for a little bit, and then I surveyed who was in the room, and then I talked more about myself and kind of my history in teaching and how I was a classroom teacher and then became a principal. And then I talked about how I wanted the participants to visualize the session as a Venn diagram with 3 circles. And in the first circle is stories, identities, and narratives and discourse. And in the second circle is data and how data drives decision making. And then in the third circle is pedagogy or instructional practices. So I took the participants through those 3 circles and did my best to explain how each of those 3 circles are related to each other. So the beginning of the presentation was very powerful to me because I felt like I was able to connect people's mathematical stories and narratives to their discourses, and in particular our discourse as school administrators. And so we spent some time talking about stories that we have about math. And so then I showed them my Ignite speech from Sillamar a few years back. Ignite, I really like it because the parameters are such that you have 5 minutes and 20 slides, and the slides advance automatically every 20 seconds. And so then I showed them this tells a story about math, which you can watch later. And then I talked about how stories develop identities, and identities can be positive, negative, or neutral, or a combination of any of those. And then the participants did a quick write for 3 minutes of their own mathematical story. They could choose any story they wanted relevant to their lives. And then they talked about their story to someone next to them, and then they shared out whole group. And then we moved into the second circle of the presentation, which was data analysis. So I shared these data analysis resources with everyone. A data analysis worksheet where you can identify and make objective statements about the data, and then from there may pull out emerging themes and patterns, and then conclude with key wonderings about the data, and then follow that worksheet, that data worksheet, with a data analysis conversation protocol where each group goes through a presentation of how they interpreted their data, and then colleagues can ask questions and then give feedback on the data. And so the data I used was the math data from my school, CASP, from last year for 3rd through 6th grade, and then the California School Dashboard Math Assessment Report also from my school. So we spent some time analyzing and talking about that data. And then we went into the third circle, which is pedagogy and instructional practices, and how that was going to be an opportunity not only for us to talk about instructional practices, but to actually do math as well. And so through that, we looked at student work. That was a re-engagement piece of student work from a formative performance math task. And then we did a feedback and revision process with that piece of student work, so that the student work had 2 feedbacks and then 1 opportunity for revision. And we talked about how that creates a depth of knowledge for students. And then I gave everyone a folder with research and resources, and it's a live link to the folder. And I talked about how all the research articles that I included are about math equity and math as social justice. Math as a vehicle to enact social justice and create equitable learning outcomes for students. And then I pulled out 2 resources in particular that I wanted to share with everyone and spent a little bit of time on that. And then the last slide, I closed with this picture from the first day of school just to bring it back to a student-centered focus, and that students should be driving everything, every instructional decision, every financial decision, especially around what people are able to do to support students learning math. So it was really fun. It's been a really fun conference, and now I have to head back down to the sports book. Thanks for listening.